Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 369 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. And here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asked you to agree with me. I'm asked you to hear me out. Let me start this episode by saying, hopefully, I think I've fixed the audio problem that I've seen the last few episodes. Hopefully, it's fixed. I appreciate everyone that's constantly letting me know, hey, there's an audio problem. I know. Hopefully, it's fixed. Hopefully, I think I fixed it. But where I want to start this episode with is a question, a simple question. What is a moral victory? I'm hearing, especially this last week, I've heard that phrase, moral victory. I've heard that a lot this weekend. When we talk about Saturday, when we talk about Sunday, I have heard moral victory a lot, more than usual. Now, I don't believe in moral victories. I think at the end of the day, there's a winner and there's a loser. I think that you can take lessons out of losses. You can take lessons out of wins. But at the end of the day, either you won or you lost. I don't think there's a moral victory. Lessons, I'm not going to say lessons are moral victories. They're just lessons. And lessons that are learned, again, through wins and through losses. In my quest to figure out what a moral victory is, I also have found it difficult to assess what I'm seeing or what I saw this weekend from two teams. And the first one I'm going to start, and again, like usual, I'm going to break down what we saw week 4 of the NFL, and I'm going to start with the Denver Broncos beating the Chicago Bears 31-28. This was one of the games where you heard moral victory. Now, moral victory is usually, for people that don't know, moral victory is usually a term that is used in pertain or when it pertains to the loser of a bout, of a fight, of a game. Instead of saying, no, you lost, they want to say, well, the moral victory is you played well, you fought well. You didn't win, but it's a moral victory. I've never been one to agree, again, with the whole moral victory stance. Because, again, at the end of the day, it doesn't say win, loss, moral victory. It just says win or loss. Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. On Sunday, I find myself having to ask myself and answer the question, how do I evaluate a game? How do I evaluate a player's performance? Because what Justin Fields did on Sunday has me perplexed. Because do I evaluate the entire game, or do I evaluate what happened at the end? Or is it a combination of both? You see, you can look at the score and think the Denver Broncos just beat the Chicago Bears 31-28. But then you would be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't actually go deeper and understand why I'm struggling to dissect this game. If you would have looked at the first 3 quarters of this NFL game, not only would you think that the Chicago Bears was a juggernaut of a team, but you would think that Justin Fields was one of the best quarterbacks in football. That's what he looked like the first 3 quarters. And a lot of the fourth quarter, that's what he looked like. So when I'm looking at the game, and I know I have the backstory, and I have the first 3 weeks of the season, I know the struggles that the Chicago Bears have gone through. I know the struggles that Justin Fields has gone through this year. And I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking, this could be the turnaround moment. I understand that the Denver Broncos, they're not the best team either, but this could be a turnaround game. And again, through the first 3 quarters, Justin Fields looked like the best player in football. And shockingly to me, and as crazy as it sounds, the Bears did something that they have not been able to do all season. And honestly, they really haven't been able to do since Matt Eberflus. Well, they haven't been able to do since Justin Fields came to the team. And that is build a scheme, build a offense, build a game plan around the talents of your best player, which is Justin Fields. They were doing that to perfection on Sunday for the first 3 quarters. Justin Fields was quick on his reads. He was using his feet. He looked like he looked like the Justin Fields that we thought he was going to look like the majority of his young career so far on Sunday for the first 3 quarters. There's a specific reason why I keep saying the first 3 quarters. And this is where the moral victory talk comes in. When you look at the numbers, man, Justin Fields, 28 for 35, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. DJ Moore, 8 receptions, 131 yards, 1 touchdown. Cole Kmet had 2 touchdowns, 85 yards. Khalil Herbert had 18 carries for 103 yards. If you look just at the stats, this was a dominating performance by the Bears, by Justin Fields. Justin Fields had nearly 350 passing yards and 25 rushing yards. But the reason why I struggle with dissecting this game is because of that last quarter. Is because of everything that I literally just said. The Bears scheming and building a game plan for this game around their best player. And everything working to perfection. The defense even looks better than it's looked. Everything, all the praise that was heaped onto this team and all you can just see it as a fan. You can see the wheels turning and you can see just the spark of this team being lit this game for the first 3 quarters. Everything that I just said went out the window in the 4th quarter. Well, let's say the last 3 to 4 possessions of the game. I talked about the score, 31-28. I failed to mention that the Bears were up 28-7. Nothing was going right. At least, let me say this. The Denver Broncos defense was rearing its ugly head yet again this game. They were horrible. And this is one of the first times that you looked at this game and said, there's nothing that Russell Wilson can do. Russell Wilson, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was not the reason that they were down. It was their defense was just porous. I was ready to chalk it up and say that this Denver Broncos team is by far the worst team in football. That's how they were playing. But everything that we saw in fact, everything that we've seen this entire season for the Chicago Bears manifested itself in that fourth quarter. The outlier was the first three quarters. When I say that we've seen flashes of Justin Fields, especially flashes of greatness, I'm talking about what we saw the first three quarters. He's done that a couple times. I know we did that against it was in a typhoon, or it was in the monsoon against the 49ers last year. I think he did that against the Bears. Not the Bears, the Patriots. We've seen flashes of what we saw the first three quarters from Justin Fields. But then everything just came tumbling down. Justin Fields having a fumble six. Justin Fields throwing a pick at the end of the game. Them going for it on fourth down, essentially pretty much, they went for it on fourth down, didn't get it, which gave the Denver Broncos short field position. Russell Wilson, 2 really good completions for first downs. They get the field goal. They win. Again, the Bears were up 28-7. I don't know what a moral victory is. I don't believe in moral victories. What I believe in is there's wins and there's losses, and there's lessons and losses. I don't know how to assess what we saw from the Chicago Bears team and Justin Fields, because everything that we've asked for, everything that we have asked from the Chicago Bears, we got the first three quarters. Everything we've seen from the Chicago Bears, we got in that fourth. So, do I praise Justin Fields for what we saw the first three quarters and say that was a great game? Or do I say, yeah, but when you needed to come up big, when you needed to close, you couldn't do that. Mind you, they also blew a 21-point lead. Now, no, I'm not saying it's all on Justin Fields. This is a Chicago Bears issue, but the issue, I will say this. There's been a lot of talk around Justin Fields since the season started, because nobody really expected the Chicago Bears to be as bad as they are. That's just facts. And I will say that I never expected. I said Justin Fields wasn't good. Or that's not, let me backtrack. I'm not saying Justin Fields isn't good. I know I had a strong critique and I'm not going to say scathing, but I had a very strong critique of Justin Fields' game, which is true. Justin Fields has not been able to see the field as good as you would want him to this late in his career. Which I understand is 4 or 5 years, probably 4 years, but you would expect more from a 4-year vet at this point. I'm not saying Justin Fields isn't bad. I know that Mike Greenberg, shouts out to First Take or Get Up. They pretty much said if Justin Fields was the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, the Falcons would be much better, which I agree with. I think that Justin Fields has the talent to be a top-tier quarterback. I just think the things that he needs to work on and the things that have plagued him are still there, which is, of course, his lack of vision in the field, which we saw manifest itself the last play or the last drive of the game for the Bears when, of course, he threw an interception. And it wasn't like the wide receiver and him just didn't. No, he literally just didn't see the defender that was right there. So, shouts out to the Denver Broncos for beating the Bears 31-28. I don't think this absolves. In fact, I look at the Denver Broncos much worse now than I do, or than I did before this game, because at this point, it's not Russell Wilson's fault. I'm not saying that there isn't blame to go to Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson is not the biggest issue. I felt that way going into this game, but when the defense looks as bad as it looked majority of this game, I'm not saying it's a lost season, but when you go up against better, I mean, you had 70 put in your head. Think about that. In the span of 2 games. In a span of 2 games, this Denver Broncos team has 98 points put on their head. That's like a basketball score. 98 points put on their head in 2 games in the NFL. This defense is putrid. But at the end of the day, it came back and won. So, shouts out to them. You know, we saw something that I thought I'd never see on Sunday Night Football. We saw something that I didn't think was possible. We saw Zach Wilson outplay Patrick Mahomes. Never thought in my wildest dreams that we would see Zach Wilson outplay Patrick Mahomes. That's what happened. And sort of the same rhetoric that I had just had for Justin Fields is what I'm having for for Zach Wilson. Everything that could go wrong for the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday night went wrong. Travis Kelce only had 6 receptions for 60 yards. I don't know how many times a wide receiver dropped a pass from Patrick Mahomes. The offensive line was horrible yet again, which I think is probably going to be the biggest reason why, or I think if they don't make any sudden changes, this Kansas City Chiefs team is not going to make it to the AFC Championship because of that offensive line. That's how bad that offensive line is. It doesn't matter how good Patrick Mahomes is. If that offensive line with the penalties, the holdings, the false start, it is just bad. Everything that could go wrong for the Kansas City Chiefs did. Patrick Mahomes threw how many? Threw 2 interceptions. Only threw for 203 yards. He was not having his best game. Zach Wilson, on the other hand, threw for 245 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was the quarterback of the game. Let's say that. He wasn't the player of the game. I think the player of the game went to Isaiah Pacheco. I think this is probably the first time in the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs tenured that they were pretty much carried by their wide receiver. Isaiah Pacheco, 20 carries for 115 yards, 1 touchdown. He also has 3 receptions for 43 yards. Isaiah Pacheco is the main reason. Isaiah Pacheco and the Jets are the main reason why the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Jets 23-20. Now, you can talk about the officiating. That's another conversation, another talk I've heard stemming from this Sunday. You can talk about the officiating, and yes, the officiating was very spotty, especially Sunday Night Football. There was a lot of holes that was missed. There was a lot of questionable calls. I know the holding or the pass interference with Sauce Gardner, that was kind of a bang play. So you can look at that and be like, yeah, I mean, that is a main reason why they won, which I don't believe so. I mean, at the end of the day, clock management and smart plays in preferable positions is what the Chiefs used to beat the Jets. But let me go back to Zach Wilson. While building this show, the hardest thing to do was to try to explain how I viewed both Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. And shouts out to Shannon Sharp, shouts out to Chad Ochocinco and their podcast that they do. I kind of feel the same, or I kind of feel the same way that both of them feel. There's no secret that Zach Wilson probably, arguably played his best game he has ever played as a professional football player on Sunday. He had quick reads. He made great passes. And honestly, I kind of believe him when he says that if they would have got the ball back, they possibly would have won or at least tied it up. So I do think this was the best game I have ever seen Zach Wilson play as a professional player. So I do understand, like, it's so perplexing. Because it's like, what do I do? And again, I agree with both Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco. It's like, I don't want to discredit what we saw the entire game. I don't want to discredit what we saw the entire game for Justin Fields. But I also can't ignore the fact that Justin Fields did cost them. Some of Justin Fields' decision-making did cost the Bears the game against the Broncos, even being up 21 points. I can't lie and say that the mistakes that Zach Wilson made didn't essentially factor into why the Jets lost. Fumbling the ball or losing the snap. It was a poor snap, but you had it in your hands and it just dropped. Some of the overthrows at the end of the game, a lot of it was Zach Wilson. And I'm not all putting it on Zach Wilson. Obviously, the defense, I mean, there was a lot of penalties that were called on the defense in very poor situations. And honestly, the running game didn't do much. Breece Hall, 6 carries for 56 yards. Dalvin Cook, 5 carries for 16 yards. Like, you didn't really get much of the running game. You really didn't get much from anybody. Allen Lazard had 61 yards, 1 touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 60 yards, 14 targets, 9 receptions. Damn. This was, it was just a, I don't know, man. At the end of the day, I'm not going to just erase what we saw majority of the game from Zach Wilson and from Justin Fields, but I'm not also going to absolve them from their shortcomings. And their shortcomings played a huge part of who won the game. So, and I do kind of want to talk about what we saw out of Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and how I think that we're way past the point where we can honestly think that the greatness of Patrick Mahomes can save this Kansas City Chiefs team. Now, do not hear me say, I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes isn't great. I still think that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football by a wide margin. And I do think that Travis Kelce, I know he didn't play the first game and he's kind of had a slow start. I think that Travis Kelce is still the best tight end in football. I think that Andy Reid is still one of the best, if not the best coach in football. But the beauty and the greatness that is the Kansas City Chiefs is, or has been, that while they have issues, Patrick Mahomes he's been so great that those issues can be absolved by the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. The issue with not the issue. The truth about that statement is, while yes, the Kansas City Chiefs had issues, they didn't have as many issues and as deep of issues as this Kansas City Chiefs team. Mind you, this is arguably the best defense that Patrick Mahomes has had. This is one of the best defenses in football, the Kansas City Chiefs. I know it's crazy to say, especially with Andy Reid as a coach, but this is one of the best defenses in football. You still have Patrick Mahomes. You still have Travis Kelce. You still have Andy Reid. But the issues with this offensive line and the lack of dependability at the wide receiver position outside of their tight end continues to rear its ugly head this season. I know it's still early, but 4 weeks in, the problems and issues that the Kansas City Chiefs have been the same game after game after game. Now, yes, Patrick Mahomes just didn't have it. Everyone has a bad game. Jordan's had a bad game. LeBron's had a bad game. Kobe's had a bad game. Steph, every football player Tom Brady's had terrible games. Every athlete just has a bad game. It is what it is. So I don't think this is the norm. I don't think that we're gonna get used to this Patrick Mahomes. But a lot of the miscues was because Patrick Mahomes and his wide receivers just didn't seem like they were on the same. They were on the same page. Receivers dropping the ball. The offensive line had a penalty in the end zone, which caused them to have a safety. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life multiple times. This Kansas City Chiefs team has the opportunity to repeat as champions, repeat as Super Bowl winners. It will not happen if this offensive line does not get it together. If this wide receiver core somebody doesn't emerge. Sky Moore, Rashid Rice, Kadarius Toney, Valdez Scantling. Somebody needs to emerge as the number one receiver. I know that I heard Kansas City Chiefs' name was in because, Chase Claypool and everything that's going on with him and the Bears. Looks like he's up out of there. So he may be an option, but this would also be the second team that the ending wasn't as beautiful for Chase Claypool. So I don't know. But yes, I'm not saying that. I'll say this. Patrick Mahomes did have a bad game on Sunday. That's just true. But the issues that the Chiefs have had this entire season or early in this season reared its ugly head yet again on Sunday. And those issues are so deep, so vast that even the greatness of Patrick Mahomes won't be able to save it if they don't get rectified. I'll just say that. But we'll see. And with all that being said, they still did win. So, shouts out to the Kansas City Chiefs for beating the Jets 23-20. It has to be hard being a New York Jets and Giants fan. But the difficulty is on a slightly different spectrum. I understand that it's difficult being a Jets fan, especially this year, because you had the hopes. The hopes were up here. You go into the season with Aaron Rodgers, arguably one of the best, not arguably, undoubtedly one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. You have one of the best defenses in the league. You have, Garrett Wilson. You have Breece Hall. You now have Dalvin Cook. Like, there was such expectations and such high hopes going into the season that were ultimately dashed. And now you have to sit week after week, primetime game after primetime game, and watch them trot out Zach Wilson and lose games that they would arguably otherwise would have won with Aaron Rodgers. I understand that pain. I understand having your hopes as high as Super Bowl and then being dashed as quickly as it was dashed for the New York Jets. For the Giants, that pain is a little different. I don't think there was any type of Super Bowl aspirations going into this season. But going into the season, especially how last season ended, making the playoffs, beating the Vikings in the playoffs, ultimately losing to the Eagles, but making a playoff run, Daniel Jones having his best year. It just looked, Brian Daboll, I believe, winning Coach of the Year. It just looked like that there was promise coming into this season. Daniel Jones just got his contract, even though that was a huge talking point throughout this offseason, and of course the Saquon Barkley thing. But you still had you brought Saquon Barkley back. You have Daniel Jones. You got Darren Waller. You have Jalen Hyatt. Like there was a lot. I'm not going to say there was high expectations, but there was a lot of excitement going into this New York Giants season. Boy, how that excitement is out the window. The Giants Monday Night Football lost to the Seahawks 24-3. And trust me when I tell you that the score wasn't as close as I know it's 21 points, but it wasn't as close as that. It was worse. I think Daniel Jones was sacked 10 times. 10 in that game. Daniel Jones, 27 for 34, 203 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One of those interceptions being a pick six, like a 97-yard pick six, by the way. There was, I don't know, man. I understand that, the issues that plague the Giants isn't just a Daniel Jones issue. And honestly, while I'm looking at it and while we sit in and while we try to dissect what's wrong with this team, a lot of it isn't Daniel Jones. I don't think the issue is Daniel Jones in a sense of he's the biggest problem. What the issue with Daniel Jones is he's not a solution. When you're getting paid the amount of money that he's getting paid, you're expected to be able to overcome the issues. You see, Joe Burrow has for majority, actually, I think all of his career in his NFL career, he has had a below average to just straight up bad offensive line. And even with that, he's made it to a Super Bowl. He's made it to two AFC championships. Joe Burrow has been able to overcome the issue. Now, of course, they haven't been able to win it all, but his play has been able to overcome the struggles and the holes that the Cincinnati Bengals offense has had. Now, yes, I understand that when you have Jamar Chase, when you have T. Higgins, when you have Tyler Boyd, when you have Joe Mixon, that helps a lot. But even still, it doesn't matter who you have if you don't have the quarterback to get them the ball. That's why Joe Burrow was able to get the money and demand the money that he got, because he has been able to overcome a lot of those holes. Same thing as Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has, outside of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, they really haven't had a dependable wide receiver core. They really haven't had a running game at all outside of now, when I say Pacheco. Their main back has been Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who doesn't even see the floor or doesn't even see the field. But you have Patrick Mahomes, and you pay him as such because he's able to overcome, or he's able to make do with what he has. When you pay Daniel Jones the amount of money that you pay him, you expect him to overcome a lot of those problems. The fact that he hasn't, now as an organization, you start looking other places. You start looking at the coach. Well, is Brian Daboll... Brian Daboll, they're saying that Brian Daboll has to coach harder, which I do agree to an extent, because again, he did just win Coach of the Year. But you see now that your quarterback is not able to overcome as bad as this offensive line is. He's not able to overcome that. So you have to find a way to put him in the best situations possible. Whether that's get the ball at his hand quicker, whether that's, I understand that Saquon Barkley didn't play on Monday, but you just have to find a way to get the best out of your player, which he has not been able to do. I mean, Darren Waller has been such a non-factor. Darren Waller, who is considered one of the best tight ends in football, has been a non-factor majority of the season. And as we sit here today, it looks mighty bleak. It looks like the season probably is over for this Giants team. Again, I understand that Saquon Barkley didn't play, but I don't think that there was much that Saquon Barkley would have changed, especially with this offensive line being as bad as it is for the Giants. It's unfortunate. Pat McAfee said this. I think that there's more hope right now. There's more hope right now as a Jets fan than there is a Giants fan, because a Jets fan, at least you know that at least next year you have Aaron Rodgers and you still have a great defense. You still have really young players. Like you see the light at the end of the tunnel. This Giants team, you have that Daniel Jones contract, and that Daniel Jones contract affects how this offensive line is built, which it isn't. It's arguably one of the worst offensive lines in football, if not the worst. Bro, he was sacked 10 times in one game. I think the game before, he was sacked 7 times. So in a 2-game span, he was sacked 17 times, which I believe is the second most since the NFL merger. I know the first one is Randall Cunningham. I think he was sacked 20 times in 2-game span. Daniel Jones was sacked 17 times in 2 games. Oh, man. It was tough. And I don't really want to talk much about the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a really good team. This defense is incredible. Geno Smith, I know that he did get hurt, but he ultimately finished the game. I guess what I want to touch on briefly is the exchange that Jamal Adams had with the doctor that pretty much was telling him, yo, Jamal Adams missed like 380 days because he hurt himself. I think he had a leg injury. And he was out for the season. So I understand, the the vigor, the frustration as to you fight all the way back. And I think like the first drive of the game, and this is your first game back, you get a concussion. And now this independent doctor is telling you, no, you out, bro. We visibly saw him upset and going back and forth with the doctor, which I understand. Again, you fight so hard to get back, and then your at least game is cut short because of a concussion. And probably at the time he felt good, but hey, at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for the independent doctor is there to be your best friend. Like he cares, not your best friend, but he is there to keep you safe, even if that means protect you from yourself. Because at the end of the day, every player is going to want to play. But, I mean, when you get up wobbly and shit, like, nah, sit down, bro. So, I understand the frustration, but I also understand, the doctor's doing his job, bro. He's trying to keep you safe. So, congratulations to the Seahawks for beating the Giants 24-3. Let's move forward. The game, well, the game that was going to be the game of the week for me was, of course, the Dolphins against the Bills. You had the number one offense going against the number one offense, or number two offense. You had, to me, the two, at least early in the season, two of the three MVP favorites were going head to head. And you also had a team that just put 70 on somebody's head in the Dolphins, going against a team that they've struggled mightily with. Well, Tua has struggled mightily with, and that is the Bills. And the Bills beat the Dolphins 48-20. Josh Allen looked all of the Josh Allen that we've seen him most of this season. 21 for 25, 320 yards, 4 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs had 6 receptions for 120 yards, 3 touchdowns. When the Bills are playing this way, they are unstoppable. And that is even with Shadarius White going out. I think he had an ACL tear, out for the season. I pray for a speedy recovery, and I pray for him mentally, because he had a season-ending injury last year. You saw how visibly devastated he was. It's not just because he got hurt. It's because he knew what happened. When you've dealt with an injury like that before, you know the feelings. And it's tough when people don't really understand. Now, I obviously don't understand. I've never had a serious injury like that. The most I've had is a broken ankle. People don't understand how tough that rehab process is. And people also don't understand there's a difference between rehabbing and training. You can't train when you're rehabbing, because that's a different approach to the off season. So when you already had a season-ending injury last year, to come back and have a season-ending injury again, that's why he just looks so devastated. So not only do I pray for a speedy recovery, and I pray for, him to be back healthy, but I just pray mentally, because I understand how tough that can be, where you prepare yourself for this season, and after missing all of last season, and then your season's over. It's tough, so I pray for that. But when the Bills play like this, when the Bills offense matches how, or the defense matches how electric and explosive this offense can be. When they're playing like this Bills team is not only one of the best teams in football, but it is a Super Bowl caliber team. I know that I talked ad nauseum this offseason about the Super Bowl window and how the Super Bowl window closes for every single team. As much as great as he is, the Super Bowl window is going to close for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs at some point of his career. And I talked about how I feel, especially with this offseason and how loud it was and everything that went on, I wasn't sure that this championship, that this Bills team, I felt that their championship window could have possibly closed. If they play like this, with their defense getting interceptions and sacks, and as explosive and fast as this defense is, if it plays like this, along with this offense being as explosive as we know it can be, then not only is this a Super Bowl caliber team, on Sunday this Bills team looked like the best team in football. I know how much as I praised, or I've been praising the 49ers and stuff like that, but this Bills team was the best team in football on Sunday. Hands down. And let's not get it twisted. It's not just because of how good they looked. It's also because they played against a team that the Dolphins have looked great this entire season. Tua has looked good. Tyreek Hill has looked good. The running game has looked good. Everything has looked good. And they looked extremely pedestrian. Tua 282 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I know there was a couple of fumbles lost. Now, I do maybe if there wasn't as many turnovers. Cuz I think the Dolphins turned the ball over like 3 times, maybe 4 times. Actually, maybe 3 times. Maybe that was, I don't know. But, and I'm not writing off the Dolphins. I do think that the Dolphins have to figure out the Bills. And the Dolphins, if it's not, this is bigger than just on Sunday. You know, like they've struggled. Tua has struggled with Josh Allen. He's struggled with the Bills. And I know they're going to see each other again in Miami. But if Tua doesn't figure out this Buffalo Bills situation, then of course they're going to continue to run into this problem. But again, the Bills look like the best team in football on Sunday going against the Dolphins, and shouts out to them for beating the Dolphins 48-20. So let's move forward. I know that one thing that we talk about a lot is MVPs. And I just said that the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins game featured, in my opinion, 2 of the top 3 MVP candidates, in my opinion, at least this early into the season. I understand, and historically, the MVP has pretty much been a quarterback-driven award. I know I'm not negating how important a quarterback is to a team. I know that the quarterback is the most important player on the team, and I understand that if it doesn't matter what you do, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have. I mean, your team is, you don't got nothing. I.e., look at the Jets. And I know that I believe the last time the MVP went to somebody other than a quarterback was Adrian Peterson. I believe it was in 2009. But Adrian Peterson was the last non-quarterback to win the MVP. And rightfully so. What he did on that Vikings team that season was otherworldly. Let's say that. I did that. I built it up like that because if there was anybody else, if there was any non-quarterback to win an MVP again, it would be this version of Christian McCaffrey. I understand that, Derrick Henry, there was probably a couple years he arguably could have won. Justin Jefferson, maybe. Travis Kelce. I know. But when you look at the 49ers and you look at how they've won, Brock Purdy has been great. Brock Purdy on Sunday, they beat the Cardinals 35-16. Brock Purdy 283 yards, 1 touchdown. He was great. But the engine to this offense has been Christian McCaffrey. I think he broke Jerry Rice's record for most consecutive touchdowns as a 49er, I believe. He had 20 carries for 106 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's 5.3 yards a carry. You just sometimes, man, and again, I don't think he's going to win it. I think he definitely should be in contention. But there was multiple times when Aaron Donald should have won. He just didn't. But when I look at this team and I look at just how efficient Christian McCaffrey is, you'd be foolish not to have him in the MVP discussion. That's how good Christian McCaffrey has been. And I know that I just said that the Buffalo Bills, at least on Sunday, was the best team. And I talked about balance last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago. This 49ers team, at least 4 games of the season, has been the most balanced. There has been no drop-off between their offense and their defense. And a lot of that is because of Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey has emerged as the best running back in football. And if he continues to play like this and Brock Purdy continues to play like this, and you don't really need much from a Deebo Samuels or a George Kittle or a Brandon Ayuk, this team is the team to beat. And I would be shocked if this team does not make the Super Bowl with how good they've played so far. Again, I know it's 4 games in, but we can't negate what we're seeing here. We're seeing greatness from this 49ers team, and in particular from Christian McCaffrey. So, shouts out to them. I'm going to say something that's probably blasphemous to a lot of people. And I understand it. It even sounds crazy when I think it. We're at a point right now where Joe Burrow has been more of a negative for the Cincinnati Bengals than a positive this season. Where Joe Burrow's presence on the field is hurting the Cincinnati Bengals more than it's helping. We know how good Joe Burrow is, and we also, I know that there's much conversation with, of course, he just got his big contract extension and how he has not looked anywhere close to a quarterback that deserves that type of money. Joe Burrow had a calf injury, hamstring calf, had a calf injury I think, the beginning of training camp, which caused him to miss all of training camp, all of the preseason, and he re-aggravated his that injury, I believe, against the Ravens. One thing I know about quarterbacks, I understand that, when we think of quarterbacks, all we think of is the upper body and the upper exterior of the body, the arms, the shoulders. But it's an entire body thing, meaning the feet are just as important as the hands. The calf is just as important as the hips. The shoulders are just as important as the back. When you're talking about the throwing motion, you need your entire body. And that calf injury obviously is hindering Joe Burrow, which is ultimately affecting the team. The Tennessee Titans beat the Cincinnati Bengals 27-3. What we saw on Sunday with this game is what we've seen majority of the season, and that is Joe Burrow being more of a negative because he just can't. I know he's gonna fight through it, but he can't explode. Like, he can't throw the ball as explosively as he wants to because he has a calf injury. I think there has to be a legit conversation as to, are we going to shut Joe Burrow down? Because this point in the season, you're 1-3. I'm not saying you can't. I understand that the Cincinnati Bengals usually with Joe Burrow usually start off slow. But when you have the Ravens that are number one in the AFC North, when you have just how good the AFC is, I'm not going to say it's a lost season, but the last thing you want to do is continue to trot Joe Burrow out there and put himself at risk. And then ultimately he hurts himself even more. We saw that with Kevin Durant. Had a calf injury. I feel like they rushed him too fast, and then boom, ruptured Achilles. I am not putting that, and I'm not saying that that's going to happen to Joe Burrow. What I'm saying is I don't want that to happen to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has been more of a negative for this team than a positive. I mean, you can look, and we saw the vintage game from Derrick Henry, 22 carries for 122 yards, 1 touchdown. The defense looked really good. Ryan Tannehill looked okay, 240 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Derrick Henry even had a throwing touchdown. None of that matters. All of that, of course, is a reason why the Tennessee Titans has 27 points. But the reason why the Cincinnati Bengals only have 3 is because Joe Burrow cannot. That calf injury is much worse, or I'm not going to say much worse, affecting him more than is obviously being led on to. And we're only saying that because we've seen the best of Joe Burrow. The best of Joe Burrow has gotten this Cincinnati Bengals team to the Super Bowl. And now he looks like a pedestrian at best quarterback. As the coach, as the GM, I think decisions are going to have to be made. When do you decide to shut down Joe Burrow and not risk further, more serious injury? Because a blind man can see that calf injury is largely affecting Joe Burrow. So we'll see. Let's move forward. There was a good conversation that was sparked about this Cowboys beat the Patriots 38-3. And there has been a good conversation that was sparked out of this. first and foremost, let's just shout out or congratulations to the Cowboys for beating the Patriots. Dak Prescott, I think, has thrown 4 touchdowns this season, which is which is the same amount as the special teams. I think this was a dominant performance from the Cowboys, especially defensively. It's just been good. Defensively, this is one of the best teams in football defensively. That is the Cowboys. And they just wrecked Mac Jones, man. Mac Jones, 12 for 21, 150 yards, 2 interceptions. He was playing so bad they benched him for Bailey Zappi. Bailey Zappi ain't do much either. 4 for 9, 57 yards. I think we have to be honest about what we've seen and question what we've seen out of Bill Belichick. Let's not get this confused. I don't think that Tom Brady has made Bill Belichick. I don't think that at all. But when we talk about Bill Belichick, it's pretty much universal that he's the best coach in football. Or he's one of, if not the greatest coach in football history, NFL history. I think the conversation is, well, if that's the case, why has the New England Patriots looked so awful since Tom Brady left? Now, again, I'm not saying that Bill Belichick or Tom Brady made Bill Belichick. I do think that Tom Brady was extremely beneficial for Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick was extremely beneficial for Tom Brady. But since losing Tom Brady, I think the Patriots made the playoffs once, maybe. And we know about the whole offensive coordinator debacle last season. And we know that Bill Belichick has been historically awful when it comes to the draft. I mean, we talk about Tom Brady. They got Tom Brady in the 6th round. That means they passed up on him multiple times. I do think that there has to be an open discussion about, is Bill Belichick, I'm not going to say, is he a great coach? Let me say this. I do think that Bill Belichick does have the resume and does have the history that, that solidifies his coaching. But I do think in recent times, he has not been good at all. This Patriots team is god awful. This Patriots team is by far, in my opinion, the worst team in the AFC West. No, AFC North. AFC East. AFC East. Mac Jones has looked like he's regressed, or it looks like he regresses week after week. The defense ain't that good. I think the conversation needs to start kicking up. And if you want to have that conversation, we can. Let's just say that. So, but shouts out to the Cowboys for beating the Patriots 38-3. Let's move forward. Congratulations to the Houston Texans for beating the Patriots 30-6. I really like what I've seen out of the Houston Texans this year. I love C.J. Stroud. He, to me, is the front runner, at least early in the season, for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He has been incredible, and it just feels like DeMeco Ryans as a first-year coach, he's been great. It just feels like we're starting to look at the Houston Texans differently. We're starting to look at the Houston Texans as a serious team. I still think that there are major holes in this team, but I like what I'm seeing out of this Texans team, and I like what I'm hearing out of C.J. Stroud. And this defense has been incredible all year. I know they're 2-2, but they've been great all year. This defense, it's just been good, man. I like this team. I like this team. Nico Collins had 168 yards, 2 touchdowns. C.J. Stroud threw for 306, 2 touchdowns. I like what I'm seeing out of this Houston Texans team, and they have been C.J. Stroud, again, to me, is a front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year right now. He has been great, and because of how they're playing, and because of how hard they play, and because of how good defensively they've been, and because of how good D'Amico Ryan seems to connect with his players, and how good of a coaching job he's been, we're starting to turn the corner and look at the Houston Texans differently. And they deserve all of it. Shouts out to them for beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, and going to the Pittsburgh Steelers side, the saying is never be too late for change, or never be too late to change. Because sometimes when you're too late to change, you're just too late. This Pittsburgh Steelers team is at least offensively, is horrible. Every single person on this offense has regressed. And I'm not saying, in fact, when that happens, it can't be the people. It can't be all of the running backs, all of the wide receivers, and the quarterback. It can't just be them. Every single person on this offense has regressed. And everyone knows what it is. It's Matt Canada and his lack of elevation as an offensive coordinator. The Pittsburgh Steelers have one of, if not the worst offense in football because of Matt. Now, again, I don't know if you guys remember, but this is the same team where I had such high hopes for because of how good they looked in the preseason. But that right there shows you just how different the preseason is to the regular season. Matt Canada has been this Pittsburgh Steelers offense has been horrible. And you're going to look up because I know Pittsburgh is notorious in not making coaching changes mid-season. You're going to look up and this is going to be such a lost season. And this might be the first year, if this offense continues to be as inept as it is, this might be the first year that Mike Tomlin finishes the year with a below 500 record. I understand. I know I said that the Pittsburgh Steelers can be a sleeper, but there's no way that you can look at what you're looking at this offense and think to yourself, oh, there's a turnaround happening. Matt Canada has been horrible. Now, I don't like to put it on the coaches a lot because I have the philosophy that the coaches don't play, the players play, but that's been true. Matt Canada and his elementary schemes has not worked. And if you're too late to change, then you're literally just too late. And you're going to look up, and not only will this be a lost season, which is starting to look like already, but this will be Mike Tomlin's first year as a head coach with a record below 500. So we'll see. Hey man, shouts out to the Toy Story game, man. I didn't know. You know what? Stuff like that happens. Like stuff like the Toy Story. The Jaguars played the Falcons in London. The Jaguars won 23-7. But of course, there was a regular game, and they simulcast the game with Toy Story. It was. I don't know how the hell they did it, but it was incredible how they did it. It was like play by play. Everything that was happening in real time happened just as, Toy Story animations, man. It was great. It was incredible to watch, and the thing that kind of shocked me about it is how much of a hit it was to like adults. I understand, kids, it was great, and you saw a bunch of videos on social media of, adults watching the adult version and kids watching the kid version, and it was just cool to see. But what shocked me is how much of a hit it was with adults, man. It was crazy to see. Shouts out to everyone that was a part of it. I know his name Drew Carter. Drew something. He was one of the commentators on Booker McFarland. It was great. It was really cool, man. Yeah, it was cool to see. Just, I don't know how the hell they did that, man, but it was incredible. I know like every year they kind of do a theme around that. I know Nickelodeon does a lot around the Super Bowl and stuff. So I do see that they're trying to tap into the kids dynamic and the kid realm. So I think that they knocked it out the park, man. Shouts out to them. And for the game, I think this has more to say about the Falcons than it does the Jaguars. The Jaguars did what they were supposed to do. Trevor Lawrence came in, was arguably the best player on the field, and they were incredible. Calvin Ridley caught a touchdown. They did what they were supposed to do. But this to me is more on the Falcons, and I started this show talking about obviously Justin Fields, and the quote that Mike Greenberg of ESPN said was, if Justin Fields was the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons would be much better position, and everyone agreed with him, including myself. Patience is an interesting thing in football. And with patience, see, people think that your team just has patience or that team just has patience. That's not always the case. There has to be something that comes with patience. And that thing is progression. You can progress. Or you can be patient, but there has to be progression in the patience. You can't just be patient, waiting and hoping for something to change. It's not, and you're saying absolutely no evidence of it changing. That means patience turns into frustration and impatience. This Atlanta Falcons team is young. It's also very talented. When you see the name like Bijan Robinson and Jonnu Smith and Drake London and Kyle Pitts, this is a young team. This is a good team. And you can be patient with a quarterback if you see progression. If you don't see progression, there's no point of being patient. And I think that's what we're seeing. And another thing that I know is sometimes the team can have less patience in the front office. And sometimes the team can have less patience than the fan base. You see, Desmond Ridder, no one thought that Desmond Ridder was going to be that quarterback to take them to new heights. But what they thought was Desmond Ridder could be the next franchise quarterback. He has not looked like that. He threw kind of like what Daniel Jones did. He threw a mean and a terrible pick six, which in fact, I think that's it right there, which essentially doomed them. We've been heaping praise about this Atlanta Falcons team, being 2-2, and the NFC South being wide open. But a lot of the praise that's being heaped on this team is mainly because of Bijan Robinson. And just how advanced as a running back that he looks. Desmond Ridder's had his moments, but he hasn't had enough moments to think that this team is going to be okay. In fact, he's had more moments like we saw on Sunday in London than he has good moments, to the point where his wide receivers, I mean, you saw one wide receiver damn near about to, I think Mike Hollins damn near about to steal off on, cuz Drake London looks, like he just looks detached, because it's just like, you know, I understand, you know, this can all be, again, they're 2-2, so it's not like they're terrible. And again, I do want to emphasize, even with all this, it's still 4 games in. But four games in, your season can be on the line like quickly. So we'll see. But shouts out to the Jaguars for beating the Falcons 23-7. Oh man. I think as a coach, you have to do what's best for the team. And you have to put your team in the best position to win. I'm looking at Frank Reich and I'm looking at this Panthers team. We understand that young quarterbacks usually go through ebbs and flows, especially in their first season. You know, they're learning how to be an NFL player. And for some reason, I don't understand why the Panthers continue to emphasize throwing the ball. It has not been good for this team. The Panthers lost to the Minnesota Vikings 21-13. A lot of it was because Bryce Young was not good. Now, again, it's not all on Bryce Young, but when you have Miles Sanders, when you have Chuba Hubbard, why do both of them combined have 27 rushes? When you have a young quarterback that is still trying to understand and learn how to be how to be a quarterback in the NFL. And now you look up, your season's pretty much over. You're 0. Your season's not over because of how weak the NFC South is, but if it was in a better conference, your season would be over. And this Panthers team is good. When we talk about defensively, you still have Burns. You still, this has good players. But Bryce Young fumbled the ball and lost it. Terrence Marshall fumbled the ball. He didn't lose it. But it's just, I don't understand how you can continuously see your quarterback struggle and think that throwing the ball 32 times is the smart thing to do. And running the ball 27 times when you have Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. And Miles Sanders was a big get for you in the offseason. So it's just, I don't get it. I mean, this is yet another game where Justin Jefferson went crazy, had 85 yards for 2 touchdowns. Did the whole too small thing on it, you know. Kirk Cousins, typical Kirk Cousins game, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 139 yards. It's just, I don't feel like the coaching staff has put the Panthers. I'm not saying the Panthers are going to start winning games if you stop throwing the ball less, but I do feel that you're going to be in more games, and Bryce Young is still able to learn more if you start throwing the ball more or start running the ball more and throwing less. That's just me, though. That's just me. I could be wrong. Shouts out to let's move on. Shouts out to Baltimore for beating the Browns 28-3. A lot of people are saying the only reasons why the Ravens won And this is, of course, coming off of their loss to the Colts. A lot of people saying the only reason why the Ravens won is because Deshaun Watson didn't play. Like Deshaun Watson was really going to put up 25 more points. We've seen Deshaun Watson this year. He don't look like a player that's just finna put up 25, at least this point right now. But Lamar Jackson was good. I think Lamar Jackson's completing like 70+% of his passes. Like, that's not really being talked about. He had 2 touchdowns, one beautiful touchdown to Mark Andrews at the corner of the end zone over like 3 or 4 people. Lamar Jackson has been good. Now, this offense has been slow. And this offense, with the new offensive coordinator and a lot of the players like Odell Beckham Jr., he's been out, and Rashad Bateman, he's been out. It's been a slow grind. But I am starting to see the wheels churning. I'm starting to see Lamar Jackson. Zay Flowers, he had 56 reception yards. Mark Andrews had 80. Like, I'm starting to see the wheels turning, and I'm starting to see what this team can look like when they get back Odell Beckham Jr., when they get back Bateman, when they get, when they get their players back. I'm starting to see because Roquan Smith has been incredible. Patrick Queen has been great. What's his name? Why am I blanking on his name? Jadeveon Clowney has been really good with his pressures that he's had on the quarterback. This team, again, I'm starting to see the team that I think, or that I thought at least going into the season, could be a Super Bowl caliber team. Again, you can go back and look at the tape. I picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. A lot of that was due to health, and hopefully they get healthy. But I'm starting to see, the team that I thought could be good enough to win a Super Bowl. Again, you're going against the best defense in football, at least for rushing, or for the rushing, or the best rushing defense in football, and you're arguably the best rushing team in football as far as what you want to do going into the game. So I don't think Deshaun Watson probably would have put more than 3 points on the board, but I don't think Lamar or Deshaun Watson was not playing was the biggest reason why the Ravens won. So shouts out to the Ravens for beating the Browns. Shouts out to Khalil Mack, man. For the Chargers beating the Raiders 24-17. This is yet another week where an inept quarterback or an inept team is the reason why Brandon Staley has a job. Brandon Staley did that did that dumb stuff again where he goes for it on 4th down and gives the Raiders short field advantage. The Raiders, they had Aiden O'Connell because Jimmy G is in concussion protocol. Aiden didn't look good. I know he's a rookie, so I don't know why they tried him out there, but it is what it is. Again, Justin Herbert, I know he fractured his finger on his non-throwing hand. He didn't look that good. He 167 yards. This was a defensive game, man. Shouts out to Khalil Mack. I think he had six sacks, which is, I think, 1 off from the record for a single game. He was incredible. And it's just yet another situation where you look at that Raiders. Yo, I'm trying to tell you, I would be shocked if you look up and at the trade deadline or after the trade deadline, Davante Adams is still on this Raiders team. I just think that the writing's on the wall especially when you see the comments or hear the comments that Davante Adams said last week. I just think that it might be a little bit over for them in that relationship, especially a team that's 1-3, and with a player as good as that, he wants to win. I get it. So, but shouts out to the Chargers. I'm still, again, I just don't like what I'm seeing out of this Chargers team, man. I know that I just don't like it, man. I don't. This team, again, with the roster that they have, this team should be much better than 2-2. And this team, and they look all of 2-2. There's some teams that don't look like they should be 4-0. That don't look like they should be 0-4. This team looks like they should be 2. In fact, this team has looked worse than 2-2, and I just don't like it. So, but shouts out to them for beating the Raiders. I hope Justin Herbert is cool. I know that he's not really expected to miss time, but he did, like I said, fracture his finger. So we'll see. Kind of like shouts out to the Buccaneers for beating the Saints 26-9. It's kind of like Joe Burrow. Derek Carr was more of a hindrance to this team than anything on Sunday. I know Derek Carr, I think he sprained his UCL or something like that, or sprained his throwing shoulder. And for the longest, they didn't expect him to play, but he played and he was awful. Alvin Kamara, first game back, 11 carries for 51 yards. This game was lost because Derek Carr wasn't able to match the offensive output that Baker Mayfield was, and I think that he arguably could have done that if he was healthy, but he wasn't. So, and shouts out to Baker Mayfield, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I just think the NFC South is up for grabs. I know that the Buccaneers are 3-1, but I think everyone is expecting the left shoe to fall for the Bucs. But we'll see. But shouts out to them for winning. Also, shouts out to Puka Nacua, man, and the Rams for beating the Colts 29-23. I do, Puka Nacua, bro. 9 receptions for 163 yards, 1 touchdown. He's a rookie. He's been great. He's been a great story. They talk about his family and everything. He has been good, and he has been the best player on this team. And I'm starting to look at this team is going to be at least offensively. Now, the offensive line is not that good, let's be real. But this team is going to look really interesting when they get Cooper Kupp back. Because, yes, you still have Van Joseph, you have Tutu Atwell, you still have Tyler Higbee, who just signed an extension, so shouts out to that. This team is going to be good. Even though, and shouts out to the Colts, they were dead to rights. They were getting destroyed. But Anthony Richardson came up and was big. 2 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 200 yards. He also rushed for 56 yards, 1 touchdown. He was great. He came all the way back, and it was again Puka Nacua. He won in overtime. They were down 23? They were down 23-0, I think. And the Indianapolis Colts scored 15 points in the fourth quarter alone. So, shouts out to them, and shouts out to the Rams for ultimately beating them. So, the last game I'm going to discuss is Washington losing to the Eagles, 31-34. Sam Howell played really good, 290 yards, 1 touchdown. Brandon Robinson played good, 45 yards, 1 touchdown. Terry McLaurin, 86 yards. The Eagles, Jalen Hurts, 319 yards, 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. I said this before, and I'll say it again. The job of a head coach is to put your team in the best position to win. And Washington was playing incredible. Now, I think they were up 10 points. And there was just multiple times and multiple situations where Washington should have done something and they didn't. Now, their defense, as great as this defense is, the defense let them down. All aspects, even the defensive front line, the linebackers, the defensive backs, every single person on the defense, and I like the defense. That's the calling card. The Washington's defense was terrible, giving up 34 points. It was bad. But Riverboat Ron, you tie the game or you score a touchdown. The score is 30-31. Last play of the game. Meaning you can either go for 2 or go for 1. If you go for 1, tie it up. All game, you've been getting torched by Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. And we know Ron Rivera for being a coach to go all or nothing, which has burned him a couple times, but it also helped them a lot of times. Why not go for it to win the game instead of you trust a defense that's been getting torched not all day? Man, you trust a defense to get a stop that's been getting torched all day. Sam Howell had the drive of his life. Yeah, man, it's been tough. Shouts out to the Eagles, man. Let's move on. Let's get off of basketball. Or let's get off of football and talk a little bit basketball. The NBA, the media day is back. We'll talk about that in a second. But another aspect to the Dame Lillard trade was Jrue Holiday getting traded to the Portland Trail Blazers. Well, the Portland Trail Blazers then trade him to the Boston Celtics, which prompts the question, who should be the favorite, at least in the Celtics? You have the Milwaukee Bucks with Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton. You also have the Boston Celtics with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. You have the Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid, at least right now, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey. To me, it is a 3-team race. No, it's not. I'm sorry. It's a 2-team race. Because if you look, there is not another team in the Eastern Conference that's even close. I mean, you can argue the Knicks, especially when you look at what they did last year. But even what they did last year, they ultimately lost. Cleveland Cavaliers have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, but they just don't have enough offensive firepower in their backcourt or front court. Nobody ever thinks that the Bulls are going to get it together. And the Miami Heat, they lost a lot of key pieces like Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, and they really put all their cards in the Damian Lillard basket, which obviously didn't work out. I think it's a 2-team race, man, and I want to say that the Boston Celtics are the favorites now with Jrue Holiday, because Jrue Holiday, he pretty much replaces Marcus Smart as a great defender that can also hit shots. We know how good Marcus Smart can be. And I think Jrue Holiday, he was one of the best defensive pick and roll players. He's also one of the better scoring pick and roll players in the NBA last year. We know how good they are, or we know how good Jrue Holiday is. And I do think that Jrue Holiday, now the Bucs or the Celtics had to give up Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon. I think giving up Robert Williams is big. Now, I understand that Robert Williams has struggled, to stay on the court due to, of course, injuries and everything. But getting Robert Williams, I do think, or giving up Robert Williams puts a lot of pressure, and you gave up Grant Williams, remember that, puts a lot of pressure on Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford in the front court. But I do think that on paper, the Boston Celtics should be the favorites. But at the end of the day, it's all about Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum has the ball the most on this team. Jason Tatum finds himself playing point guard a lot more times than he really should. If Jason Tatum does not make that leap, then it's hard for me to consider them a champion, or it's hard for me to consider them a favorite. They can be they're always going to be a championship contender with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and now Jrue Holiday. But it's all about Jason Tatum. If Jason Tatum makes that leap, then they're obviously Super or NBA championship favorites. But not to mention, I do think that defensively they need, because last year they took a big step back defensively. I think Jrue Holiday, if they're able to get back to their defensive level that they played, 2 years ago when they ultimately made it to the NBA Finals, I think that this team, especially with Jrue Holiday, should be a championship, or should be a championship favorite. It's really, if Jason Tatum does not make that leap as far as, assisting and ball handling, and not ball handling, he has a good handle, assisting and half court offense more consistent, especially, shooting half court offenses. I don't know. But I do think that right now it's a two-team race in the East. Again, the Celtics and the Bucs. The only reason why I'll give the Celtics a slight edge is because defensively, what they can be, and especially at the perimeter, and the Bucs, Dame and Giannis is going to be a dynamic duo, but off defensively, you're putting a lot of pressure on Giannis because Damian Lillard doesn't play that good a defense. So we'll see. But it is an arms race in the East, man. To me, people feel like the East is up for grabs. There's a lot of talent in the East. I mean, we need to see what the Brooklyn Nets look like with Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Ben Simmons. Toronto, are they gonna blow it up finally? Tyrese Halliburton for the Pacers. Like this is an arms race, and there's this, to me, going into the season, there's more parity than ever. I don't know who's going to win. And that kind of brings me to the next topic, which is the NBA Media Day, which is pretty much the start of the NBA season, or the start of the NBA season festivities before, training camps and everything. It's wide open, man. I can see a pathway that, the Celtics could win, the Bucks could win, the Heat could win, the Denver Nuggets, the Golden State Warriors, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Suns, the Kings, the people. I completely forgot that Kyrie Irving was on the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, because we need to see what they look like when Ja Morant gets back from that suspension. Is Zion Williamson, because people forget the Pelicans were one of the best teams in basketball when Zion Williamson was playing. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? Like there is so much parity in the NBA. And the NBA feels that. They know that. So you see people like Boston giving up a Robert Williams and a Malcolm Brogdon just a year after getting Malcolm Brogdon, because they understand that getting Jrue Holiday can definitely change their fortunes. This is going to be an interesting year, man. Very, very, very interesting year for the NBA. And I'm excited. I'm truly, truly excited, honestly. So we'll see. I wanted to say, also, let's move forward. I also want to say congratulations and shout out to Canelo Alvarez for beating Jamel Charlo. I think it was a unanimous decision. There's just levels to it, man. There's levels to it, and Canelo Alvarez is considered one of the greatest boxers ever. and definitely one of the faces of boxing right now. To me, it's really hard to pick anyone else outside of Canelo Alvarez and maybe Bud Crawford. Jamel Charlo or the Charlo twins, I just don't think that they're good. Don't get me wrong, but the highlights that the Charlo twins have, the last few highlights is losing to Canelo Alvarez and getting slapped backstage by I forgot the dude's name. That's what the Charlo brothers have been doing so far. Now I'm not disrespecting them at all, but yeah, man. And now you're hearing Jamel Charlo called out Bud Crawford. If you can't beat Canelo, I don't know what you think you finna do. I know that he had to go up, 15 pounds or something. I know that definitely it affects how you fight, and it affects just your speed and everything. I get that. And you get tired fast. I understand that. So he'll probably look much different. He's still undisputed at his weight class. That is Jamel Charlo. But I just, after what I saw from Bud and Spence, I don't know if that's a tree you want to bark up, my guy. But shouts out to Canelo Alvarez for beating Jamel Charlo. And also shouts out to Aliyah Boston for being the 5th player in WNBA history to win WNBA Rookie of the Year unanimously. She joins a list of Aja Wilson, Elena Deladon, Tina Charles, and Candace Parker. Again, there really wasn't much of a debate of who this should be. She's been great. So I'm not surprised that she won. And shouts out. I think that the fear it is hard to succeed in the WNBA, just seeing as how many, or the lack of players and lack of spaces they have. So there's really a short leash in when we talk about, the amount of time you get to develop and the amount of time that you get to show off your skills. Well, I'm happy that, Aliyah Boston has came out the gate firing, and she has been not just one of the best rookie, or not just the best rookie in the WNBA, but she's been one of the best players in the WNBA all season. So shouts out to her for winning the Rookie of the Year unanimously. Much deserved. And yeah, man, we'll talk about the WNBA finals, a prediction, and we'll break it down on Saturday's episode, because I'm excited about that, because the first game is on Sunday. So we'll talk about that. But there you have it. That has been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly appreciate you guys. If you want a Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow as big as I can. Pause. The YouTube channel, and everything helps. I appreciate everyone that continue to support and work with me and allow me to work through the audio issues. It definitely means a lot. I think I fixed it. So, I kind of pride myself on trying to give the best quality, and that obviously wasn't it. So I appreciate you guys for supporting me, but continue to subscribe. Tell a friend to subscribe. Definitely means a lot. Also, follow the socials. Follow Instagram, follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily. If I don't post something, I'm communicating with someone. I post on the story. Daily, you'll get content on the socials that you may or may not get on the YouTube. So definitely follow those as well. And until next time, much love.